Get started this morning. I want to welcome everybody here. Hope everybody got a donut and some coffee or banana if you're not eating donuts like me. Just want to thank everybody for coming. Couple things before we get started. If you're not on our email list and you would like to be, please leave your email with me and I will add you. I've sent out a couple emails here in the past few days, one reminding everyone about this training, and the other one announcing a training series that we're going to be doing for the next 3 months on a Saturday. It will be August 11th will be the first Saturday, September 22nd, and October 27th. We've contracted with Lindy Conover, who was at our conference. She has a business, EP Collaboration, and she's going to be coming in and doing a nonprofit series for 3 Saturdays in 3 consecutive months. So those will be our next trainings coming up. And I can announce the grant kickoff as well, right? Our grant kickoff for the next fiscal year will be September 13th at 6 p.m., and that will be over across the way here in the community room. It will be discussing our grants for next year, and it will be a potluck. We've had a potluck during that meeting the past couple years, and that's worked out really well, and people seem to enjoy that. So it'll be 6 p.m. grant kickoff in the Cherokee community room here across the way. And so those are some of our upcoming events. And I said in the email that I sent out about this training that we have some new staff at CCO, and so I want to introduce y'all to Vince Feeling and Kenley Henson. They're our new TA specialists here with CCO, and you're gonna get to hear from both of them today. We're gonna be doing a couple. They're gonna be doing a couple different shorter presentations before I do my presentation. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to let Vince come up here and talk to y'all. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. As he said, my name is Vince, and I am one of the new guys with CCO. Been here for a little over a month, and it's actually been very informative month, and I'm still learning a lot of stuff. But today, we're going to go over taxes. Everybody loves to do taxes, right? Well, everybody has to do taxes. We actually have some forms that you can kind of go along with us on here. If people don't have these, Kenley can actually pass a couple of these out. We're not going to go word for word. We're just going to kind of roughly go over this. But it is the Form 990N. Whenever we talk about nonprofit organizations, 501c3 organizations, this is the form that we're talking about that they should file, the 990N. Now, there's actually 5 different versions of 990 forms that the IRS has for nonprofit organizations. However, for some, there's stipulations in here, there's thresholds that you meet, and for the most part, all the CAUTA organizations that we work with, for the most part, can fall under this particular one, which is really good because this is the easiest one that the IRS has. So let's go ahead and get started here. You might be wondering what it is. Well, the IRS calls it an e-postcard. Now, it's no, tranquil scenes of the beach or anything like that, but it's an e-postcard. It's not an actual paper form. And they call it an e-postcard because you actually have to file it online. And some of the things that you need in order to file the 990N, first of all, your organization must have nonprofit status. It must have 501c3 status. You must have that in place before your organization can file this particular form. You need your employer identification number, the EIN number, the tax ID number, some people call it. What I call it, I like to refer it to as the social security number of your organization whenever you first file with the IRS. They'll give you the EIN number. And you have to know your 12-month tax period. Now, some organizations go by calendar year whenever the tax period ends in December, and some organizations go with the fiscal year. This too is determined whenever you file for your 501c3 status. So you just got to remember that. Now, the 990N, whenever you're filing for it, it's actually due the 4th month and the 15th day after your tax period. So for instance, if your tax period ends in December, it's going to be April 15th, and so on and so on. Yes?
I have a question. Since we're going through using Cherokee Nation funds, do we need to use the Cherokee Nation's fiscal year, which is October to October, or whatever, does that matter?
No, that doesn't matter. The funding is actually separate from your organization.
Okay.
Your organization, whenever you set up your 501c3, that is whenever it's determined. So your organization, whenever you set up the 501c3, it will have a place in there to determine whether you're a calendar year or a fiscal year.
Will they tell us that, or will we request it?
They should actually have it already.
I'm sorry, ask one more time. Answer
Either a calendar year. What determines the calendar year?
So basically, when you form as an organization, you determine that when you file for your 501c3, you decide right then whether or not you want to go on a calendar year or the fiscal year. I recommend you go on a calendar year just because it's just easier to remember. The end of the year is December and that your taxes are due in April. You can pull it up. We can do a search with the IRS.gov. If you do not know, we can do a search for you with your EIN number and let you know what you originally filed.
Okay.
And so, but that is all set up when you originally complete your 501c3 application.
If we have the 501(c)(3), we have the form, does it show us on the form?
The original application, if you still have your original application, yes, it should say on that. It should also say in the letter that the IRS has sent you approving your nonprofit status. So it should tell you on there when your calendar, or it's physical or calendar year.
Thank you.
Or we can help you look it up in just a few minutes.
As I said, I'm still learning this, so I'm leaning on my bosses here. But we're all in this together. We're all in this together. But you have to know your 12-month tax period. You do have to know that. And you have to have your organization's legal name, and you have to have the name of a primary officer. It doesn't have to be the president, it could be the treasurer, but you just have to have a primary officer's name in order for the IRS, if they ever need to contact somebody, they will have that information there. You need the organization's website. Now this right here, if you don't have an organizational website, don't sweat it. This is one thing that the IRS doesn't really need in order for you to file the 990N. So if you don't have a website, don't worry about it. You're good. You're fine. This is one of the most important ones here. You need to have confirmation of $50,000 or less in gross receipts. $50,000 is the threshold. If your organization makes over $50,000 a year, you cannot file a 990N. But if your organization comes anywhere under $50,000 a year, yes, your organization does qualify to file a 990N.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, would that include grant money that you receive, or is that
Yes.
fundraising? It does
Yes.
include grant money.
Everything included. For that particular year, grant money, fundraising, yeah, if your organization does not make any more than $50,000 for the particular year, yeah, you can file for this one.
Thank you.
Mhm. And there's a few things here. We're going to go ahead and go through the process to actually file the 990 as a first-time user. This is, you have to be a little tech savvy for this, but I'm going to try to walk you through all the steps. Everything that we're going to go over is in this form right here. The IRS actually has a pretty good format here. It's pretty easy to follow. And some of the issues whenever it comes to technology, sometimes for me, I have issues with actually getting things to work properly and stuff. So this is some of the things that the IRS tells us to do. First of all, whenever you're starting to file or starting to log on to do anything, they recommend that you close multiple browsers. Just have one browser window open and then proceed from there. And they also say do not use your smartphone. Now, this one, as I said, is the easiest by far to file, but they also say that you do not want to use your smartphone. I'm just going to go with that. Whenever you're actually opening an account with the IRS, setting up an account, setting up passwords and stuff, you'll actually need an email address as well. The IRS will send confirmations. They'll actually send a code that we'll get into whenever we're setting up this account. But for anything that the IRS needs to talk to you about, they will do it by certified mail. They will not email you, and they will not call you personally. If the IRS needs to talk to you, they will do it through mail, and then you will contact them. That's one important thing. The IRS does not do unsolicited emails, and they do not do phone calls. They do it by mail. And if all else fails, if you're still having issues, I would say probably restart your computer. That's the old college try. A lot of times that works for me. Sometimes you restart your computer and give it a little tap, give it a little kick across the room. Sometimes that even works too. But restart your computer, and a lot of times that fixes some of the problems. I don't know how that works, but it does. So we're going to go through this as I said, as a first-time user. When you're going to file for your 990N, you already have your 501c3 status, and you're good to go. You pull up the IRS website, and this is what it looks like right here. Now, with everything government-related, it's usually buried. It's not really easy to find. So we're going to try to get around all that, and we're actually just going to get down to all of it here. You can actually search for it, or this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through charities and nonprofits. Just click on this little tab right here. It'll bring you to this page. And then you want to go to annual report filing. Annual report filing. This is actually the website. Yeah, there's actually pictures. These particular pictures are not in the particular. Yeah, this is just if you was to set at your computer. Here in a little bit, we'll actually be using the pictures under it. But this is like you just set at your computer, you pull up the IRS website, and this is what you're going to see. So you have this, charities and nonprofits. Whenever you click that link, it'll take you to this link right here, and you're wanting to look for annual reporting and filing. As you can see in my browser history, I've actually done that because it's highlighted. So you click on that link, it'll take you to this page. And then you want to go down and you want to see annual electronic notice, e-postcard for small organizations. You click on that and it'll take you to this page. And then it gives you a bunch of information right here, pretty much everything that's in the document. The document pretty much starts right here. All the information you need to actually file, to actually go about setting up the account is what we're going over. It says it right here. Now, if you do not have a paper copy or you don't have access to a paper copy, like those of you all in TV land right now, you can go to User Guide, and you can print it off yourself, or you can email me and I can email you a copy as well. So we're on this page, and what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to scroll down a little bit to get to where we need to be, and we're ready to file. That was the same page, we just kind of scrolled down. Ready to file. Form 990N electronic filing system, the e-postcard. Now this is where the document actually begins, right here. As I said, we're going to go through and we're going to do this as a first-time user. So you have your 501c3 and you're wanting to file. First-time user, the first time that you ever sat at a computer and got on the IRS website and told the IRS that you was wanting to file your taxes for your organization. So you have to sign up, you have to create an account for first-time users. Now you don't have to create an account all the time, this is just one-time thing. Create an account, and then it'll take you to this page right here. And I believe this is actually step 1 in your book if you want to kind of follow along with it. It's pretty straightforward. It asks you for first name, last name, email address a couple of times, and then you want to go ahead and send code. Now this is where the IRS actually gives you permission to get into their system. They will send you a code through the email address that you got listed. They will send you a code. And a lot of times it's instantaneous. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes or so, but this code is only good enough for 15 minutes. So it's something that you can't start filing, and you actually have to do it then. You have a 15-minute window for the code, or else you have to redo it, and they'll send you another code, which is, you can still do that. But the code that they send you is good for 15 minutes.
Oh, just numbers?
It will be numbers. It will be a series of numbers and letters. But yeah, the IRS will send you that code. And I want to make sure that whenever they send you this code, you check your email, and you also check your junk mailboxes in your email and your trash, because a lot of times people don't see it. For some reason, it bounces into the junk email and the trash. Whenever your email servers go through everything, sometimes it actually ends up in the junk mail. So just check those areas. So they'll send you the code. Right there, you'll see that after you put in your email address. They'll send you a code. It's good for 15. After you get your code, you'll enter it right here. The one-time code that they will email you, you'll enter it. And then press continue. This is where you're actually creating your username. So whenever you're creating your username, take heed of these right here, all the password rules and regulations that you have to do. And we're just going to go with the username right here. Story of my life, it's right here. I'll give you a little see. Every single day. So we're just going to say that's the username, and we got our password, whatever we want it to be. Make sure you write everything down as well. And you want to go and you have to choose a site phrase. Now this is something that's going to be familiar to you. This is something that you're going to see every time that you log into the IRS website. It's going to be a site phrase. This is a security thing. This is something that you will know and only you will know. You'll choose a site phrase. It doesn't matter. You can actually have spaces, hyphens in this. There's really no rules to this particular one. You just need to have a site phrase that you're familiar with. And then after you choose your site phrase and you continue, you'll have to choose a site. You'll have to choose, you have to choose a picture, actually. And you'll have to scroll through and actually find a picture. You can't really upload this. Once again, this is another security measure from the IRS to make sure that you know that you're actually on the IRS website, because you'll be able to see your you'll be able to see your site phrase, and you'll also be able to see the picture that you've chosen here, just to make sure that you're actually on the IRS website. You will always see those pictures, and you will always see that name. And it will ask you to do 4 questions. Right here, there's a drop-down box on each one of these. The questions range from what's your dog's name, what kind of car did you drive in high school when it married. It's got a bunch of different questions, so you'll have to pick 4 different questions, and you'll have to get 4 different answers. Once again, write those down and press continue. If you get this far, your profile should be good to go. continue on. And this is just security information that the IRS will send you. They'll just let you know that every time that you log on, they will show your most recent time that you logged on, just so that you know. Make sure that that coincides with your records. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, the first time user goes through all this and
Yes.
they've got their password and so forth. The next time another person in the organization is going to file taxes, do they have to go through this routine again? They're a first time user for them?
Yes, yes, that would be, it will be kind of a preparer, I believe. We'll actually get to that, but yeah, they would have to set up an account as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they will have to go through it, you know, and it's just better, for security purposes, they will have to do that.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Vince, can I add something?
absolutely.
Because he is absolutely correct. You know, you wouldn't really want to give your password or your information to anyone else. So you do need to be careful about that. But I will tell you, I set my password up for the IRS when I first came to work for CATA. I've used the same password, phrase, everything now for 13 years.
But that's
So,
you.
me.
Yeah.
But, you know, so, yes, but you will keep this information once you've set it up from now on. However, when a new person does it, they would need to set up their own.
Changing officers.
Correct.
And here we go. We've got the account set up. We're ready to proceed and actually file for the 990N. So we want to go and manage e-postcard profile. Click on that and it'll bring up this. Right here, you'll either want to click exempt organization or preparer. Now, exempt organization is as you are doing the taxes for your organization. Now, preparer is you are doing the taxes for multiple organizations. If you actually help out multiple organizations to help them prepare their taxes, you will actually have to choose prepare. But for this particular training, we're just going to say that one individual from that one organization is actually sitting down and actually preparing the taxes. So you want to click exempt organization. And then it'll bring you to this. What you'll have to do is you'll have to get your EIN number. You'll have to input your EIN number. And then you'll have to create new filing. You only have to do this once. You will only have to create a new filing. And after you add your EIN number and you log on, it will always be right here. And then you may actually be a part of another organization and have to file for their particular taxes. You can actually delete that particular IN number and then add the IN number of the organization that you're doing the taxes for. So you want to create new filing after you input your EIN number. And then you want to select the EIN. As I said, they'll be listed here. Select the particular EIN number that you're doing the taxes for. Right here, they're just asking you for the organization information. They need the tax year. They want to know if your organization is still in business or not. And they want to know if your gross receipts are normally $50,000 or less. Now, whenever you're filing this, don't really have to have an exact amount, but you do need proof that your organization does make 50 and less. Bank statements will work, but you just have to have proof in case the IRS needs to contact you and they have any questions.
Do we need to submit anything like a bank
No,
statement?
you don't. You actually don't. You'll just have
Taking
to.
our word for this.
That's right. That's right. They are taking your word for it.
But we still need to keep it in a file somewhere.
Absolutely.
In case we are audited, just like you do at home.
Exactly. Absolutely. But for this particular filing, they are taking your word for it.
You just say yes, and then
Pretty much.
keep the proof.
Absolutely. And then they want to know the organization's legal name, and if the organization is doing business as a different name, On this particular page, it's not really showing it. It'll be down here somewhere, but they'll actually want the principal officer's name, address, and contact information as well. And you continue on. That's pretty much it. It'll send you, you'll have a confirmation page. It'll have your organization's name, the AIN numbers. It'll have all of this information filled out. This is what you really need to make a copy of. This particular page after you file. Make a copy of this, because once you leave this page, you won't be able to get this page back. So make sure that you make a copy of this, print this out, make a screenshot. That's what you gotta do. Yes, ma'am.
We have a pretty long name for our organization.
Mhm.
Sometimes we just use an acronym. Would that be our other?
Would that fall under,
No, you want to just put your whole name in. It doesn't, doing business as means, is normally like, if you have another business, like, you're nonprofit, but you're doing business as a different name. So you don't have to put your acronym
Okay.
in there, no.
so you got your confirmation? And that's pretty much it. However, there is one final thing that I want to touch on. You have to file taxes every year. Everybody knows that. That's a given. However, if you do not file, if your organization does not file the 990N for 3 consecutive years, the IRS will automatically revoke your nonprofit status. They give you 3 years to catch up on your taxes. If you do not file for 3 consecutive years, they'll take away your 501c3. They will do that automatically. Yes, sir.
And then you will have to pay the IRS $850 to be instated. Done it.
The gentleman knows what he's talking about. Absolutely. All right. We're going to do a little quiz. What are 3 things you need when filing your organization's 990N? This is going back to the list of things that I said you needed. So you don't have to give me, this is at the very beginning of the presentation. So what are some of the things that you need, some of the information that you need whenever you're first filing for this? Anybody?
501.
Yes!
EIN.
I got one right here. I'm actually bearing gifts today. So we actually got, for those of you who didn't make it to the conference, I am actually giving out conference t-shirts. And I have extra large and 2X. So which size would you like, Mary? You got the 501c3 status question right, and you get a t-shirt.
I said it, but actually the other lady said it the same.
I've got one, I love it, I'd take 2 or 3 of them. I wear one every day, this is a good feeling shirt.
I'm saying it is a nice shirt.
It is good.
I'm going to give it to you. I'll give it to you.
Whatever.
Which one would you like, extra large or 2X?
Extra large.
Extra large, all right. And I heard another answer over here. Somebody yelled out another answer. Yes, ma'am.
EIN, I'll take the 2X.
Absolutely.
Yay! I got one already, but I didn't take it.
All right, I need one more.
You
One
need to
more.
know the amount of money the organization has acquired.
That's actually going to be my last question. But I'll give it to you. Yeah. Extra large or 2X?
Extra large.
Extra large. I'll go ahead and pass it down.
Okay.
All right. How many years before the IRS revokes it?
3.
I'm going to give it over here, man. What shirt would you like? Extra large, sir? Extra large, 2X?
Extra large, fine.
Do I have any more?
Got any small?
I got 2, wait, you got
I
to
got
do
2X.
1X, right? And we're going to do one more. How much? How much? What's the threshold? 50,000. I got a 2X shirt for you, sir. All
Your
right.
other sister.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, my name is Vince Fielding. I don't have business cards yet. That's how fresh that we are, me and Kinley. So this is my contact information. We'll go ahead and leave it up here for a few seconds. I'm the new technical assistant specialist, along with Brad. This is Kinley as well. And as I said, we're just now learning about the organizations that are out there, just now starting to work with them. And I have to say that the organizations that I've actually met with, talked with already, you guys are doing some really good things out there. So it's going to be a pleasure and a privilege on my part to be able to work with you all in the future. So once again, I'm Vince Billing, and this is how you file your 990N. So I'm going to hand it over to Craig.
She's supposed to come tonight. And so we're going to Danny.
Yeah, we did too. We figured it out.
Hello everybody, my name is Kinley Henson, and I am one of the new, like they all said, I'm one of the new technical assistant specialists. So today, my presentation is really easy and simple. Probably one of the simplest forms you're going to fill out. So it's that 512E form. Does anybody know what that is? Have you guys ever filled that out before? The Oklahoma income tax form? Yeah? Maybe?
Does anybody need a copy of the 512E? Anybody?
Okay, first off, I'm going to tell you guys how to get there because it's a PDF version, but you can't do it online like how Vince's was, where you can,
Oh, no, I
okay.
wanted one, sorry.
like Vince's was, his form, what you had to do it online and submit it. Mine you have to mail. This one you have to mail. So, but there's a PDF version, or also we're passing out those, and you can fill it out. And send that too. So you go to the Oklahoma Tax Commission website. You can Google it, Oklahoma Tax Commission, over here right up there, and it's oklahoma.gov/tax. That's the website you're going to look for. So once you get there, it's going to pop up this big Oklahoma Tax Commission screen, and you're going to go to the business section. And right there underneath that little drop-down window at the very bottom, you're going to go into forms and publications. And then after that, the next drop-down box is going to go to forms, income tax forms. Then it's going to bring you to the income tax form page. And you're going to go down, you're going to scroll down on there, and you're going to find 512E, Return of Organization Tax Income. Sorry, I'm like getting over allergies. You're going to click on that, and it's going to bring you to a PDF version. So this is a PDF version. It's editable. So you can go, not edible like eatable, but like you can edit in it, and you can fill it out, or you can type it. And so it'll bring you up to this, and basically you're just doing this one-page thing, and there's a little portion on the back, maybe. So the first part is you have to do like exactly what Vince was telling you. You guys have to have your organization, you have to have your IE number or your EI number, and you have to have the date where it's qualified for tax, income, exempt tax. So you write down your name, your organization, your address, your IE number over here, and then the date qualified for tax exemption status. And, the calendar, either the calendar year or your physical year of your income tax. And the next page, you don't have to do this if your organization doesn't make over $50,000. And a lot of us don't. So the second part, you'll just exit out. But if you do make over 50, then ignore that big X. You have to fill it out. And then the third part is just signature. It's just signature of the officer. That's filing, the name, put the name, the title, phone number, or if you have a preparer, they're going to fill that out on that side too. And this part is only if your amended return schedule. So if you didn't file the year before, this is the only time you're going to fill this out is if you didn't file for the year before and you're filing for that year. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, you're just filing for this year, then you're going to push no, or you're going to exit no. And basically, that's it. And then you have to mail it in. So you're going to mail it to Oklahoma Tax Commission, P.O. Box 26800, Oklahoma City, 731260800. So that's all you do. And yeah, it was so simple, right? That was really easy. It wasn't all that big stuff that Vince was doing.
And we can email these presentations to you as well.
Yes. So, like everybody said, I'm new. I'm Kinley, and if you need to contact me at all for any question, I can answer. I can help somehow. Yeah, there's my contact info. So, thank you guys for listening to my really 3 minutes presentation. Okay.
All right. Were you muted, please? Okay. All right. All right, I want to thank Vince and Kinley for doing those presentations for us. It was a good first presentation for them, don't you think?
Yes.
Very good job. Those two forms are very important for your nonprofit to make sure, like Vince said, if you don't file that first one for 3 consecutive years, they will take away your 501c3 status. Basically, because if you're not filing, the government thinks that you're no longer an organization, and so that's the way that you keep telling them that your organization is still active. And the same way with the state, if you don't file that 512E form, you'll become inactive in the state's system as well. And a lot of the information that you need for those filings are within the documents that either the IRS or the State Tax Commission sent you when you first incorporated. So you need to make sure you have those documents and keep those documents somewhere safe where you can find them, okay? You won't believe how many times somebody has called me and said, Brad, do you have a copy of our 501c3 letter or a copy of our state certification? We can't find it. Or our EIN number, we can't find it. And so that's why we keep those files, and that's why every single year when you apply for our grants, we ask for the same information. One of the reasons is because we want to make sure you still have it, and the second reason is if you do lose it, then we have a copy of it for you. So that, I know it gets kind of repetitive, all this stuff that we ask you to send in, but there's a reason for it. So I'm going to do a presentation today. Everybody should have a handout on their desk there that starts with the board building cycle. Looks like this right here. And so this presentation is basically going to go over these handouts. And the purpose of this presentation is to give you some tools that you can actually use for your board to recruit and to keep board members engaged. I got a little bit about me here, the first slide, which most of you guys already know me, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. But I'm going to stop on the fire department thing. I'll be referring to the fire department a lot and the board on the fire department because I did serve on a board. That's one of the only boards that I've actually served on, so that's where I draw a lot of my experience from, is from serving on that board. So I'll be referring back to that some in my presentation probably. And our agenda for today, we're going to talk about the board building cycle. We're We're going to do a little activity about your board in particular. We're going to talk about how and where to find board members, board member expectations, a board member handbook, orienting, engaging, and educating board members, and evaluating board members and meetings. And then we're going to do another little activity after that. Our goals for this presentation are for you to understand the board building cycle and where your board is in that cycle, how and where to find and recruit board members, key elements for board member expectations, handbooks, and evaluations, how to properly orient, educate, and keep board members engaged, and how to evaluate board members and board meetings for effectiveness. So those are the things that we're going to learn today during this presentation. So I want you to look at the first page there, the board building cycle. And you're going to see some notes on this handout. I apologize for that. These are my notes that I took when I actually listened to this presentation for the first time. But I think they offer some insights into at least what I was thinking at the time when this guy was presenting this. This is not mine. I did not create this. I'll give credit to where credit's due, and it'll be at the end of the presentation. But I saw this, and I got most of the information from a guy named Chuck Loring, who did a presentation at the Sarkees Foundation conference back in November of last year. And I actually asked Chuck to come to the conference, and he said, "I'm retired. I'm not coming," which that may have been code for "he can't afford me." But but so I said, "So is it okay if I go ahead and present what you presented?" And he was like, "Yeah, go ahead." So so I got this from him. I made the presentation myself, but the presentation doesn't have a ton of information. It's just got a bunch of images to help remind me where I'm at. This is where the real information is. So the board building cycle. Step one is to identify. Identify what you have, who you have on your board, who's missing from your board, what pieces are you missing from your board. You can't start recruiting new board members or know where your board is without identifying who you have and who you need. So that's identify. Cultivate potential board members. And this is talking about cultivating relationships with people who you think could be beneficial to your board. Recruit prospects after you've cultivated that relationship. That's a key point. After you've cultivated that relationship, after you've got to know somebody. The problem that we run into a lot of times around here is that boards are so desperate for members and for volunteers that they take the first person that comes along, right? Who doesn't need a board member from time to time? And so somebody will come to your meeting, it'll be the first time you met them, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm kind of interested in being on the board." And you'll say, "Okay, let's vote you on right now." That's not how you build a board. That's how you get, nine times out of 10, that's how you get somebody that's going to show up to one meeting and then not show up again, right? You need to cultivate relationships, actually recruit people onto your board for their skills, for what your board needs, not just to fill a seat. Orient new board members. We'll go over this here in a little bit. If you'll notice, this orienting and recruiting in some ways can actually switch places. You kind of need to orient somebody to your board before you actually recruit them so they know what they're getting into. They need to know a little bit about your organization before you even ask them to actually be on the board. So recruit, orient, engage all board members. Discover their interests, involve them in committees and task forces. I've told this to several boards because, believe it or not, most boards have the same issue. What's that issue?
Finding people.
Finding people. And what about the people you got? Sometimes they don't show up. Sometimes they don't work, right? So those people that aren't showing up, find out if you know them well enough, you should know what they're good at. Give them something to do. They're either going to step up or out the door. Okay? If they step out the door because you gave them something to do, they don't need to be on your board in the first place, right? So a lot of times people aren't showing up, aren't coming, aren't doing anything because they haven't been asked to do something. Now, I'm not saying ask them to do just some menial busy work. I'm saying figure out what they're good at, what they like to do, and ask them to do something that involves what they like to do. Educate the board. Provide information concerning your mission. Your board members should know your mission statement by heart. If your mission statement's too long for them to memorize, it needs to be shortened. Your board members should know what your mission is, and they should be educated on the direction, the goals of your organization, where your organization is going. You want to educate them about the facilities. If you have a building, you want to educate them about the difficulties that the organization is facing. And you want to celebrate the board's accomplishments. Step 7 is to rotate board members. This is probably the most controversial one. And I said this at the conference, I'm going to say it again. If your organization is 10 years old or older and you still have the same president that you had 10 years ago, it's time to rotate. Time to rotate. Now people they're like, no, we can't do that. I'm going to tell you something. Did y'all know you can actually still be involved with the organization and not be on the board? Yeah, you can. In fact, sometimes you can play even more influential role, as a consultant or advisor that people come to and ask questions. So you can be involved with your organization. It's not going to hurt. You don't want to rotate your entire board off at the same time because there's no continuity there. But we're going to talk about evaluating here in just a second. If your vice president is doing a really good job of, if your president's had to be gone, your vice president's done a really good job of stepping in to that president's role when they're gone, why not switch? Why not swap them and give, that vice president a chance to be president for a while, and the president can step down to vice president or just to be a member. So rotate positions on the board. The only one that you might want to hang on to, and presidents probably won't like this, but the only one that you might want to hang on to for a long time is your treasurer. If your treasurer is really good at what they do and filing those things, you want to hang on to them at least long enough for them to show somebody else how to do that, right? So there are certain skill areas that you may want to hang on to longer. Your vice president, should be learning from your president how to run the meetings, if they're attending all the meetings. So rotate, switch people out. Evaluate the board and individual board members. We're going to talk about that more here in just a little bit. And celebrate. Recognize victories, progress, even the small ones. Appreciate individual contributions to the board, the organization, and the community. Make room for humor and a good laugh. So next we're going to skip a couple pages. I just want to touch briefly on the board profile worksheet. This is a 2-page thing with expertise, skills, and personal data. This just helps you evaluate who you have on your board and what areas you're lacking in as far as age, gender, ethnic background. Of course, we're working with Cherokee organizations here, so most of our folks are going to be Cherokee. Resources, education, areas of expertise. So those 2 pages kind of help you evaluate what your board has and what it's lacking, what it needs. So on the 4th page there's an exercise that says your board profile. So if you're here with members of your organization, you can kind of get together on this and figure out what you have and what you're lacking here. We're just going to take about 5 minutes to do that. So look at this page and try to answer some of those questions. This is something that you can take back as well to a board meeting and say, hey, what are we missing? What do we have? What are we good at? So this is just a little tool here. So we're going to take about 5 minutes. If you're here with people that are not, if nobody else is here from your organization, it's just going to be your opinion right now so that you can take it back. So we'll take about 5 minutes and just fill this out. If you have any questions, you can refer back to the 2 pages before, or you can ask me questions on these.
See, what we got, three women and. So we're doing that. He's the only man. All of these things. The age, where we live, ethnicity.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's not what I have.
The question is, how do you have too many of them? You have too many the same age, or too many the same sex, or too many the same.
Okay, guys.
Too many older.
That's gonna be everybody, Jerry. Yeah, that's an issue for almost every board.
What demographics are you missing, or do you need to strengthen, why are they important?
Abundance, we have needs. Abundance, we've got men.
There's where you need to put your younger people.
About the same age, about the same sex.
As you've got younger people, you have people that have kids or interested in it.
Discussion here on question number 1. What demographics do you have in abundance?
Most over 65.
Most over 65. That's what they were saying right here. They were saying we've got
51 to 65.
Okay.
More women.
More women.
More women.
We have more men.
We have more men? Okay.
Well, that's unusual, that's great.
Anything else that you have in abundance?
Most whites, a few Native Americans, but most white.
Okay. What demographics are you missing or do you need to strengthen? What would number one be?
Younger people.
Younger people. Younger people. That's what we hear a lot from, this. And, there's an age range where people tend to volunteer. And it's over, retirement age a lot of times, 52, 53, 54 and over. And then you kind of, as you go down, you kind of skip about how many years? 18 to 20? Why would that be?
They're still working and
They're working, raising kids,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then you have the demographic that's like 18 to, it keeps going up actually. People are getting married and having kids at older ages a lot these days. So you got a range there from 18 to, 26 to 30 where people, still may not be married, they may not have kids. So those people tend to volunteer a lot too. So that if you're looking at younger people, you might want to look at college age folks, different people like that to be on your board, to be volunteers. So that's a good place to look. What professions, industries, spheres of influence do you have in abundance?
Retired again,
Retired?
especially teachers.
Teachers?
Retired
You'll have a lot of teachers, yep. A lot of folks around here are probably going to be in service industries, teachers, public service folks. Not a ton of what you would call white collar. A lot of folks are probably around here going to be blue collar farmers, people like that, just because that's what there is a lot of around here. Profession, industry, spheres of influence are you missing? Looking for someone, I'm going to refer back to my fire department board. We have a treasurer now on our fire department board who's a retired accountant. And that is amazing because he keeps us, straight as far as our finances go. Every decimal point's in the right place and all that kind of stuff. You got two people signing for checks. You got, you fill out if he gives you a check, he gives you a slip with the check to fill out that says who you're giving the check to, how much it was, and you sign it. And so that way, not only do you have the signed check, but you have the name of the person that gave the check to whatever person he gave it to you for. So he's really good at that. So some people like that have specific skills, specific experience, and it depends on your organization. For the Stillwell Library Friends, somebody that has worked in a library might be a good skill set. So just different. It depends on what your organization does, who you want to look for. But all of our boards could benefit from kind of looking outside their sphere of influence for somebody to bring in a new perspective. We're going to move on to how and where to find board members. The first one says where to find suggestions of good board members. Now notice it says suggestions, it doesn't say where to find good board members. This is just saying to talk to these people and ask them, hey, do you know anybody that might be interested in being on a board? Do you know anybody that might be interested in our specific mission? And tell them what your mission is. So colleagues, people that you work with, board members of other nonprofits. Now, this one might kind of sound like you're poaching board members, but another nonprofit may have somebody that just went off their board. Some nonprofits have term limits. You can only be on the board for a certain amount of years. And so there may be somebody that just went off their board that's still looking to volunteer and be on another board somewhere else for that 2 years or 3 years that they have to be off the board. So asking other nonprofits. Articles, reports in the local media. You see on Channel 6 News that this person is going off a big board in Tulsa and they're retiring to Lake Tenkiller. Would that be somebody you might want to look at? Okay, so you can find that kind of stuff if you watch the news, if you watch the papers, things like that. Because that person may be tired of the big board that they were on, or they may be retiring from that, but they may still want to volunteer somewhere where they're moving. Chief executive and other senior staff. A lot of us don't have those, and we're small boards. Ask other board members. Volunteer centers. Places like the Red Cross, United Way, people like that have, when volunteers come into those places, they usually have them fill something out that says, this is what I'm interested in doing. Maybe those type of larger boards, maybe a volunteer isn't necessarily qualified to be on their board right away, but they've checked on their paper that they had to fill out that they are interested in serving on a board. And so you might be able to get ideas for board members from larger places that have a large number of volunteers. Who to consider for board membership? Current, prospective major donors. If you have somebody that's giving a lot of money to your organization, and it doesn't, around here, a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean, millions of dollars. It may be, $100 a year or something. But if somebody is willing to donate their money to your organization, but that's all that they do, they may not be more involved in the organization simply because nobody's asked them to be. So if they're willing to donate their money, there's a good possibility that they're willing to donate their time as well to your organization. Community leaders, executives of local or national corporations, owners of small businesses, individuals and professions related to your organization's mission, people who have benefited from the organization's services, or their relatives. Now this is another good one. There's several relief type organizations around here that helps people pay an electric bill every once in a while, or helps people during a burnout if their house is burned down. So why not, a year, 2 years later, if you run into that person again that your organization has helped, why not ask them, of course ask them how they're doing and stuff like that first, but why not ask them if they're interested in coming and volunteering some time with the organization, being on the board, coming to a board meeting just to check it out. So people that have benefited from your organization and its services in the past are other people that you could consider. Local leadership programs. I know Tahlequah has larger cities, most of them have something that's run either by the Chamber of Commerce or by the city government that's called Leadership fill in the blank. Leadership Tahlequah, Leadership Tulsa. A lot of the larger places have these leadership programs that they run every year, and the goal of these programs is to educate people about the surrounding area and to get them involved in organizations. So keep an eye on, again, the newspapers and the TV about those local leadership programs. Where to look for prospective board members. Churches, other religious institutions are a good place. Trade, professional, fraternal organizations, organizations representing various racial and ethnic groups, local colleges and universities, another good place. We've got one. Every single person at NSU who is a part of a fraternity or sorority has had service drilled into them for 4 years. Serve your local community, volunteer. And so those folks that are leaving those types of organizations that may be graduating may be looking for somewhere to serve. A lot of people kind of hang around Tahlequah for some reason after they leave NSU, right? And so in this general area, you've got a college or a university where you can look for potential board members.
Brad, high school students are also applying for colleges, and they need service hours.
Right.
That looks good on
Right.
the
They may not
application.
qualify to be on a board, but they would qualify to be
Well,
volunteers.
you can't even have a youth.
Yeah, you could have a youth board, yeah.
board.
And that youth board can feed into your, if you're training them up right, they could feed and actually be members of your regular board or your executive board at some point in time.
I got one.
Yeah.
Everybody that gets the Cherokee Nation scholarship for
Yep.
schools. they
Everybody
will-
that gets the Cherokee Nation Scholarship for school has to have service hours. If they get that $2,000 semester scholarship, they have to do 20 service hours. It doesn't matter, where they go to school. You may just get them for a summer if they're back. But those are other places to look. What about board member expectations? So some general expectations. Number one on the list, support the foundation or organization's mission, purposes, goals, policies, and programs while knowing its strengths and needs. Your board members should be your number one fan. They should be your number one promoter. And so an expectation would be that they would be supporting, promoting your organization in public. Board members should be able to suggest possible nominees for the board, serve actively on committees, provide input and feedback, and attend activities sponsored by the organization. And I would actually mark out that whenever possible. The expectation, and if you go down to the next one, it talks about prepare and participate in board and committee meetings. And I have 100% in my notes. The expectation for a board member should be that they will attend 100% of meetings, and they will attend 100% of events, that they will attend them all. Now, people are like, that's a lot, 100%. Everybody can't make it. But we're talking about expectation. If your expectation is 75%, then how much lower is the actual going to be, right? So your expectation for board members should be that they will be there 100% of the time. They will be engaged 100% of the time. And I'm going to talk specifically here in just a minute to, on number 2 in meetings, it says ask timely and substantive questions at board and committee meetings consistent with personal conscience and convictions while supporting the majority decision on issues decided by the board. I'm going to talk to our secretaries and treasurers here for a minute. There is no way that a person can get the board meeting minutes from the last meeting, get the financial statement at the board meeting, and ask timely and substantive questions. They need to have those things prior to the meeting. And I know I'm just looking around in here, I'm talking to several people in here that don't use email whatsoever. So the only option for people that don't use email is to get those things prepared ahead of time and either put them at the place where you're going to have the meeting or hand deliver them to all the board members. This is an expectation, and you can't have an expectation on your board members to be informed and ask questions, informed questions, if they haven't seen the financial statement but 5 minutes before they're supposed to ask questions. Just my soapbox there for a minute.
So you're saying minutes and everything?
Minutes and everything, agenda, minutes, and financial statement. I need to be prepared, I would say, at least 3 or 4 days before the board meeting, so that people can have time to look at them and say, I have a question about this. And the other part of that, though, it says ask questions that are consistent with their personal conscience and convictions while supporting the majority decision on the board on an issue. Unless something that the board does is illegal, then the majority decision should always be supported by the board members. You shouldn't have people talking, saying, well, that wasn't right. If it just wasn't right, in your mind, but it was actually still, a legal thing to do, then you need to agree to disagree and move on, right? Now that's not saying you can't bring it back up the next time that same issue arises and say, if you'll remember, last time I said this, I still feel the same way. You should ask questions, but always support the majority decision. Maintain the confidentiality of the board's executive sessions and speak for the board only when authorized to do so. This brings me to another thing that was probably covered in another session at the conference. Your board should have an official spokesperson. The person that if something comes up, the newspaper comes to you for a quote, only that person that is officially authorized by your organization to speak should speak to the media. They shouldn't be able to get a quote from just anybody. You need to have somebody that speaks, that has the authorization to speak for your board on behalf of your organization if they're asking for a quote. Now, if it's asking for a decision of the board to be made, then that needs to come back before the whole board. But if you're just asking for a quote for a newspaper article or whatever, you need to have an official person that speaks for your organization. And that doesn't seem like a big deal until it is a big deal. Until somebody from your organization gets quoted in the newspaper saying something that is just completely off base, right? Suggest agenda items periodically for board meetings to ensure that significant policy-related matters are addressed. So your board members should be up enough with what's going on to be able to suggest agenda items to the secretary who's making up the agenda when asked. Avoid conflicts. This basically just says that all board members should avoid even the appearance of conflict of interest. And your conflict of interest policy should be in your bylaws. They should, recuse themselves from voting if something's going on, like you're adding on the building and you need a contractor and your, brother-in-law's contractor. That doesn't mean you can't use him. That just means when it comes before the board for a vote, you just need to recuse yourself from that vote and not vote. So that's conflict of interest. Fiduciary responsibility just means take care of the money. It's the board's responsibility, and each individual board members, you might say, well, I'm not the treasurer, but it's still your responsibility to take care of the organization's money. Fundraising. Make an annual gift to the foundation or organization according to personal means, but no less than the minimum amount established by the board for its members, and with the realization of the leadership role the board must play in fund development. All of your board members should be giving regularly to your organization. Some boards even have an amount. They say this is the minimum amount that board members are to donate to the organization. Your board members should be your number one promoters. They should also be your number one fundraisers, barring some, huge donation from. And that doesn't mean you have to give a huge donation yourself. It would be nice, but that means you should be out there fundraising. And just because you give a personal donation, that doesn't exempt you from going out and helping with fundraisers. So it works both ways. Assist the organization by implementing a fundraising strategy through personal influence with others. That's saying use your connections that you have to help your organizations raise funds. Participate actively in all organization fundraising, special events, programs, and activities. So that is the board member expectation sheet, and that's just a sample of some board member expectations. Board member handbook. Now this gets into the stage of that cycle where we're talking about orienting new board members. And this is just a suggested table of contents. Not gonna go over it a ton, but just a suggested table of contents for a board of directors handbook. The front of it would have a listing of your current board members, maybe a little bit of a biography of each one of the board members, who they are, where they're from, the board member terms, which is how long they're going to serve, statement of responsibilities, board member responsibilities. A lot of us don't have committees, but if you do have committees, a committee or task force job description. A history of the organization. Our organization started at this time. We met in this building for a long time, and we got our own building on this year, and just a short history of the organization. The articles of incorporation, or your bylaws. IRS determination letter listing of past board members, if those folks are still around. Strategic framework, mission statement, a plan, a strategic plan or operating plan, minutes from some recent board meetings, finance reports, board policies pertaining to the board, staff, if you do have staff, organizational chart, and just a calendar on the information, programs, brochures, website information. So that's just a suggested list of for a board handbook. So orienting new board members. The board orientation chart is the next page. This is an overview of the information that needs to be conveyed to new board members on their orientation. Again, this is just an example. Not everybody's going to have all these things. Not everybody has staff. But these are just some things that need to be presented to someone when they first come on your board. A tour of your building, of your facilities. Presentation by a program participant would be good. Slides, pictures, verbal presentations to show what programs you offer. Finances, board history, strategic direction. So basically the same things that were on that board handbook is what you're going over here, orientation chart. Engaging board members. This next one has a few things that you can do for committees. Like I said, not a lot of us have committees. A lot of the times the board is the committee, but it does have some specific tasks that you could give someone to kind of keep them engaged depending on their personal skills. Bylaws review. What better way to orient a new board member to the bylaws than to have them look at them and say, do you see, can you look over these and see if there's anything that you think we need to change? Is there any wording in here that's confusing? Different things like that. And then down the bottom it says board activities. Annual board retreat and planning session. Now this is the time when the board would get together, not in the normal place that they normally get together. Whether it's a picnic one afternoon or whether it's an overnight stay somewhere else, a time for the board to get together that's not in their regular meeting time, not in their regular meeting place. Now these are usually planned for the year. They're usually planned in advance, but that's a good idea to keep people engaged. Volunteering at other nonprofits is another good way to keep people engaged. Another good way to keep board members engaged is by coming to things like this together. Education, training that's relevant to your organization. we had a couple, you'll see this third thing down here is solicitation training, planning for the ask. We had a couple people do fundraising training at our conference. A lot of people have a hard time asking people for money, right? But how do you expect your board members to raise funds if they don't know how to ask people for money? So that's another, these are some trainings. And the good news is we can offer a lot of these trainings through CCO. We just have to know what you're interested in having. We have a evaluation on everybody's table. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're in the planning stages of planning our trainings for this next upcoming year. So today would be a good time to fill in this section down here that a lot of people usually leave blank and tell us what you want to hear next year. What are some topics that your board needs for the upcoming year? So education is important. It's important for your board members to be up on current events, current legislation that might affect your board. There's a whole list of things, and if you can't think of anything for us to do next year, look at this list right here, and you might be able to pick something. One thing that I've offered to do, at least for every new board that I've come across since I've been here, is to do a training over board roles and responsibilities. And that lays out not only the responsibilities of the board as a whole, but lays out the responsibilities of each individual position on the board. And so we'll be happy to do that. That may be something that we do next year for one of these trainings, is board roles and responsibilities. We're talking about kind of getting back to the basics for these. The next one is evaluating board members. There's several different types of evaluations. There's individual self-evaluations, group evaluations, stakeholder evaluations. What I want to point out about the evaluations, you see there's a page right here that says individual board member self-evaluation. If you flip back to the page that says board member expectations, it's almost word for word. So your board member expectation sheet can almost become your evaluation sheet. And this is a self-evaluation. This is saying, do I understand and support the mission of the organization? Am I knowledgeable about the organization's services and programs? Do I assist with fundraising? Do I have a good working relationship with the chief executive or president? Do I recommend individuals for this board? Do I prepare and participate in board meetings? So this is a self-evaluation of board members. The next page, we're going to skip real quick. Actually, 2 pages. We're going to skip 2 pages and then go to the one that says Sample Board Assessment Instrument. Now, this is an evaluation that each individual board member would fill out of the board as a whole. What do they think? How do they think the board is doing? The board understands the fundraising strategy. All members provide financial support to the organization. Board members actively participate in fundraising. Board has a clear policy. This specific one is about fundraising. So this is just one of the many responsibilities that you could assess. So there's different types, and these are just some examples of evaluations. I actually have this, and I'll email it out along with these presentations to my group email. I have these, in a digital form that people can run off copies. So that's evaluating individual board members and the board as a whole. Now, evaluating board meetings are that's the 2 pages that we skipped. Have you ever been to a meeting like this? This guy's sleeping, he's bored. This lady right here is controlling all the time of the meeting. This guy is being a clown, and this lady right here, she doesn't know what to think. She's just off in Never Land, okay? So, the thing is with board meetings is you have to have them, right? Everybody has to have board meetings, whether they're monthly, whether they're quarterly, whatever. So why not make the most use of that time? You have to have them. Why not make the most use of the time? And so these two pages here are about how to construct better board meetings and sample board meeting evaluation. Now I'm going to get back up on my soapbox here about minutes and agendas and financial statements. Your board meeting, if you have it every month, shouldn't last over an hour and a half. If you last over an hour and a half, then you've got way too many things on your plate. Okay? Now, a lot of board meetings that I've been to, not just y'all's, just board meetings in general, since nobody got the agenda ahead of time, nobody got the financial statement ahead of time, nobody got the minutes from the last meeting ahead of time, you spend about 15 minutes just looking over those things. And that's 15 minutes if people would have got that stuff ahead of time that you could actually spend making decisions, answering questions if there are questions about those things. So that's back up on my soapbox for a minute. It's really important to get those things out at least a couple days ahead of time so that people can see what they're going to be looking at and have questions formed, and that way you can get right into, you can take your roll call, make sure you have a quorum. You can say, are there any questions on last month's minutes? You can say, you don't even have to read them. You can just say, are there questions? Because they've had a chance to read them ahead of time. Are there any questions on the financial statement? So that you take care of two things. If there's no questions, you take care of two things that usually take 15 minutes in 1 minute. All right? Do there need to be copies of those things available? Yes. Do they need to be available for people to look at if they didn't get them? If you have a guest, you have somebody from your organization that's not on the board, shows up for the meeting, but they're a volunteer, they need to be able to look at those things as well. But you can take care of stuff really quickly and use your time more effectively if you do those things. So those two evaluations kind of give you a path forward and how to construct better board meetings. Assessing the board. And I put this picture up here. I don't know if you can read the title of the picture, but it says the Board of Directors. And I put, are you really? Are you really the Board of Directors if you're not directing the organization where it needs to go? And that's what this whole presentation is about. It's trying to make sure you have the right people in the right places and going all paddling in the same direction. Now, the last page, or the last page before we get to the exercise, is intentional board recruitment. I'm just going to go over a couple of these. Do not assume your future board members will have any nonprofit education. Be ready to send them to some trainings or to give them some trainings about nonprofit education. And again, to get back up on a soapbox, do have meaningful term limits and enforce them. That goes back to rotating. So, we're going to go to the exercise next. exercise, board building cycle, and this is 2 pages, 5 questions. Again, get with the folks that you came with from your board. If you're not with anybody from your board, this will just be your opinion. This is something you can take back. But this is talking about what we talked about at the very beginning, the board building cycle. I'm going to go back to that big slide here. Because this is talking about where is your board in this cycle. So if you could answer those questions, about 10 minutes. I'll give you to answer those questions, and then we'll have a little bit of discussion, and we will be finished. If you have questions about the questions, just ask me.
Can we get this thing out?
Yeah, I actually sent it digitally yesterday, and I'll email it out. I'll email that with presentation as well.
Okay, now we got the trainings and stuff, by email and things like that. You all, time I gave you the training, do all of our people.
I'd say more like the, you know.
I mean, if they've given me their email, I said, "Hey, you
Or the meetings all together. Can I send you a list of our people to email them so that they can get the same thing we get? I mean, we try to share it.
I try to,
Those words, no.
I try to keep that email list updated.
And we haven't done anything on getting
Sometimes,
more
so,
yet.
there's notes or whatever for people that be added, that we can get back.
Somebody's email to you a list, and you get one that. Okay, good.
Be in front of the computer.
All right.
Well, I mean, I'm on here with my.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I'm going, but I'm not sure. We're supposed to do it together.
board building cycle do you think y'all are doing well?
None.
None? None?
Well, I'll tell you, we all meet at all of our meetings, we're all there.
You're all there, so
We're all there.
everybody's engaged, everybody attends.
We're there, all of us, for the monthly dinner, we help clean up. We have people that help us do that.
We are good at getting involved in other organizations too. You
Oh,
know,
so-
I just noticed that we're everywhere. You
Right.
know, we're in the library, we're at Kiwanis, you know, just attending.
So you're usually, you're going out and
Yeah.
and
Food pantry.
recruiting and talking about your organization at other places as well. So that's, yeah, that's good for recruiting board members and finding new board members and keeping people involved. What are some steps in the cycle that you're skipping or barely doing?
No handbooks.
No handbook, so no, is there a board member orientation when new board members come on, or do you just kind of say, here we are? And that's the case for a lot of, that's the case for a lot of places. A lot of boards around here for community organizations, basically they let people learn as they go. But there should be some, basic information. That handbook, like I said, that's a suggested list. That doesn't have to be the list. There should be some basic information that people are given. I always like to, of course, I'm a history person at heart, so I always like to tell people, the people that are on your board should know the history of your organization. They should know, some of the difficulties that you faced in the past, some of the things that your organization has been through, and that helps them have ownership of your organization. We'll skip to number 5 here. What is your next action step? What's something that you can do immediately or very shortly in order to improve a part of this board building cycle that you're not doing?
Well, we need to get the rest of our board members here tonight to hear this
Yeah.
class, so they can help us.
And that's what I was talking to Anita and Ty. Anita and Ty had to step out. They had another meeting to go to, but I will email this presentation and these handouts out in a digital form so that y'all can have them. You guys are welcome, to copy these handouts for your other board members, for your other members, so that they can see. The number one thing, that's what these folks here from Marble City were talking about. The number one thing is getting, all your board on the same page. Reading from the same script, paddling in the same direction, all those things. You need to all be on the same page as far as with the direction that your organization going, what roles and responsibilities each person has, what roles, responsibilities the board has as a whole, and what your mission is and what your vision is for the future. This is where we want to be. And they were asking if we have people that come out and do board training. You're looking at them.
Right there.
Vince and Kinley are learning quickly what we do. It's not rocket science. There's well researched and well laid out plans. There's well laid out presentations. We already have presentations that are made up on board roles and responsibilities, on the responsibilities of the board members as individuals, the board as a whole. So that's something that we could give to them, and within a few weeks they would be ready to go out and present on those things. So we always say this, and it always seems like we get busy doing other things, but we do want to come out more often and visit your board meetings. We do want to come out and do individualized training for your board. Like I said, a lot of the new organizations that we've had this year, I've said, I'll come out and do that, just give me a time. And nobody ever gives me a time. And so I've came out and met with a few of you on an individual basis, but I would like to come out and give a formal training, like in a presentation, and so that everybody can get on the same page. So if you want that, contact me, contact Tammy, Vince, Kinley, and say this is what we're needing. And if the person that you contact isn't the person that can give that to you, then we can find the person who can. And so we can work it that way. And just contact us. Let us know these are our needs. The evaluations here. That brings me to the close of my presentation. So make sure everybody fills out the evaluations. Those evaluations are a good time to put what topics you would want to hear in the future, what topics you need specifically. If you want us to come to your board meeting or give a presentation, my suggestion would be to email me, call me, and let me know that if you want an individualized. But these evaluations are good things to put what you want to see in the trainings, the public trainings that we have to come. So the last page in your handout are the basic responsibilities of nonprofit boards. And this is just my ending slide for this presentation. Says back to basics. And that's kind of what the theme probably for our next year's trainings are going to be. Back to the basics of how to run a meeting. What are some of the things, the Oklahoma Open Meetings Act, what sort of things do those require? We've even talked about, I don't know if Tammy mentioned it to Vince and Kinley, but we've even talked about at our next training, us getting up here and having a mock board meeting. To say, this is how the order, this is a suggested order of things, this is how you make a motion, this is the proper way to vote, different things like that. So, or to record votes, I shouldn't say vote, we don't want to tell you how to vote. We just want to show you how the procedure is done. But we've talked about doing that for our next training. So that's something that we might want to look at. Mm-hmm.
That would be one of the most helpful things you can do, because this organization has been going on for a lot of years, the CAUTA organization.
Yep.
Because when I was first in it, it was called CAUTA.
Yep.
Okay, now it's CCO, but it's the same thing.
Right.
We've gotten so far advanced with everything that a lot of the people have, new ones have come in, the basics. And that back to basics.
And that's what we've been talking about. We've got a lot of new organizations, we've got a lot of new faces, and so that's exactly what we've been talking about. So these are just some basic responsibilities. These are things that we would go over in a presentation on responsibility of nonprofit board. So everybody make sure you fill out your evaluations. My contact information, well, first of all, this is the guy who I got all this information from, Chuck Waring. He was presented at the Sarkis Foundation in November of last year. This is my email. My name's Brad, but my email is Bradley-Wagnon. If you send it to brad-wagnon@cherokee.org, it will go somewhere out in space, but it doesn't come to me. So Bradley-Wagnon@cherokee.org is my email. Before we finish up, just want to make sure everybody knows we do have the 3 trainings coming up: August, September, October. I've been sending out some emails. We're also going to send out a regular mail flyer about that as well. So you'll be getting that in the mail. Those 3 Saturday trainings, you need to RSVP, and the RSVP is going to go to Kinley. So her email will be on that flyer, and you can RSVP to that session of 3 nonprofits. I sent out an email yesterday with a video in it, and it was Lindy talking about the presentations that she's going to give, talking about what each one was going to be about. So if you have access to that email and that video, please watch that video and share with the rest of the folks in your organization about what we have coming up. And so those 3, August 11th, September 22nd, October 27th will be those 3 dates. And then the other important date to remember again is September 13th, 6 p.m., right over here in the Jolly Geek Community Room. Those 3 trainings will be in the community room as well. But September 13th, 6 p.m. will be our grant kickoff for the next fiscal year over there in the Cherokee Community Room. It'll be a potluck. We'll be sending out a flyer on that as well with potluck alphabet saying, you know, if your last name starts with this is what you bring. So we will we'll send that out. Be sending that out very, very shortly. Anybody else? Anybody have questions, comments before we get going?
I have a few questions. You were talking about the gifts or the donations from the board members. Should we have some kind of a ruling that each board member donates?
That is completely up to you.
Okay.
But
What is the norm of the small groups like us?
a normal number?
No, the norm. What do you people do?
Oh, what do they have
Yeah.
giving?
No.
Planned giving?
Requirement.
Does anybody have a requirement that you
No.
donate to the organization financially?
We have a membership. They have to be a member of the museum in order to serve on the board.
Okay. Yeah. And I heard y'all talking about that with the fire department. In order to serve on the board of a fire department, you have to pay your membership to the fire department. That's what qualifies you as a member of that particular fire department and what qualifies you to be on the board.
So we
And
don't
so
have to do that.
you don't have to do that, but a lot of larger boards do that. They want their board members to be invested not only time-wise, but financially in their organization. Okay.
On the email minutes, I send them out usually the night when I get home from the meeting that night. I type them and send them out. Do I need to send them out again before the?
You don't have to, but I would, just as a reminder.
Okay.
You know, if you email them once, that's sufficient, but a month, or for some people, 2 or 3 months has passed since that last meeting, so they may not remember.
And the agenda, I thought the president did that. Was the secretary supposed to do that?
That's up to your organization.
That's too
Yeah, yeah. You within your, roles and responsibilities of each one of your board members, that should be laid out. You know, the secretary does this, the president does this, the vice president does this. So there's not a norm or a have to thing for that. It's just whatever y'all decide.
Okay, one more thing, and I missed this at the not the convention, the conference. And I missed it today. I don't know who these people are and what they're working for. Could we sometimes take a few minutes
Yep.
and do some introductions? If they want to tell or if they don't want to
Sure.
tell, that's okay too. I just like to know.
We can do that. We've got a couple minutes left. We can do it real quickly today because there's not a ton of us in here. So if one person from each organization wants to kind of tell who you are and what organization you're with and kind of point out the rest of your members, anybody can start.
Well, we'll start back.
Yeah.
We're the ones along the Eleanor's River Area Community Organization.
Yep.
IRACO, we call ourselves. But we're along the Illinois River, and we're wanting to build a building to where the, actually the firefighters or the support group, the helpers with the floods, that's what got us started. A place where these people could come and rest, clean up, and then building could also be used for displaced families during the floods or whatever. And then we want to do a food program eventually. We're just starting, so we're young, and that's why I asked so many questions. But that's us.
I'm with Stillwell. I'm with the Stillwell Public Library Friends Society. We
Oh,
have
I
a
got
long
one.
name too. Yes, yes. And we just do everything we can to support our local library. After 10 years, we built the children's wing. So now we're working with, supplying furnishings and equipment, and that's kind of what we're doing now. We're always fundraising, seems like.
I'm with the Weber's Falls Historical Society Museum, and our mission is to preserve the history of the area when it was settled in 1821. And we just recently got the National Park Service and the Trail of Tears Association have put in a wayside at Weber's Falls as the last water route of the forced removal.
Barbara Gertie with the Cherokee National Historical Society, also known as the Cherokee Heritage Center. And Dr. Gore is seated over there. He's our executive director.
Everybody pretty much knows what the Heritage Center is. Historical Society. Y'all?
Well, we're the Marble City Community Activity Organization, but we've changed it to the Marble City Activity Organization, but it's still the community.
Yep.
And we work with the community. Our organization has a nutrition site there, and that we work with all of the elders in the area. And we have the community building. It's available for rental for different organizations
Got lots of
in
organizations.
town.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your organization?
Pam Kendall, the Proctor Community Center, and we started as the school at Proctor when it was a school, and it went from that building until we built a new building, and it's just kind of like the center, the little hubcap in the middle of what is our town. And we have a community center you can rent, and we have monthly dinners to have our elders. And it's the center for anything that you might need. Food, we have a storm shelter, we have a helicopter pad, playground, track. So
Good food. I went there for, I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner last year and visited with them. And my dad actually grew up at Westville, and so I was pretty close to the Proctor area. So a lot of folks that were there knew my dad. So yeah, that's a little bit about who the folks are that are here. Yeah, that helps. Thanks for that reminder. I because I know everybody, that kind of doesn't cross my mind all the time that everybody doesn't know each other. And even more important to me than I don't know if I'm still on here. Yeah, I am. Even more important to me than what I have to say or what anybody else has to say that's standing up in front of you is the things that you all can learn from one another. That's the most valuable part, I think, of these trainings. And so everybody that is still listening, if anybody's still watching out there, if anybody watches later, that's the part that the folks who watch online miss out on, is the discussions, the conversations, the networking that goes on here at these trainings. So I just want to encourage everybody that's not here and everybody that is here to, if you're not here, I want to encourage you to come. If you're here and there's people from your organization that aren't here, I want you to encourage them to come to these trainings, not because we're offering them, but because there's valuable information that you all can learn from one another. And so with that, we're going to stop for the day. We're a couple minutes past our scheduled time, but I just want to thank everybody for coming. And if you have questions, we'll be around for a little bit afterwards if anybody's got specific questions they would like to ask or things that they would like to talk about. So thank you all for coming. What else?
Thank you.
Brad?
Yep.